House. Joining me right now is former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. And Secretary, not to get into anything about your security, but why is it that this administration is continuing to push forward to return to the United States into this Iran nuclear deal?
It makes absolutely no sense to be sitting at the table with the Russians and the Chinese negotiating, quote, against, end of quote, the Iranians, to put Iran on a pathway to a nuclear weapon, to give them what will be tens of billions of dollars. And then yesterday, Secretary Blinken refused to even say that he would show the full agreement to Congress, as he's required to do by law. This will put our friends and allies in the Jewish homeland of Israel at risk. It'll put our Gulf state partners, who are just furious at our re-engagement with Iran while they're firing missiles into their countries. This takes our friends and allies and puts them in a really dangerous place, and it puts America at an awful lot of risk as well. We ought to return to the policies that I had and President Trump had, which were to put real pressure on the regime to cease its engagement in terror activities all across the world.
Well, all you have to look at where we are right now in the world to understand the impact that you had, your State Department had, and President Trump's administration had on peace in the world. It seems that we are looking at chaos everywhere you look, and now we're worried about the potential of a nuclear exchange. How worried are you about nuclear war as Vladimir Putin seems to taunt the world every day? What should the U.S.'s response be?
You know, Mary, think about this. We were just talking about Iran's nuclear program. We're about to give them a bunch of money to build one out. You have Chairman Kim firing the longest missiles he has ever fired from his missile arsenal, with a nuclear component to it as well. And now you have Vladimir Putin, who has hundreds of nuclear warheads, threatening to use those in a tactical way on the battlefield in Ukraine. This is what happens when America fails to lead. It's when America fails to set out red lines and then actually deliver against them, to back up words with deeds. When we lose that, Maria, when we lose the capstone level of deterrence, when the bad guys in the world, the authoritarian dictators in the world, no longer fear and can't put into their cost calculus an American response that is serious and credible, these are the kind of things that happen. It puts America and America's economy at an enormous amount of risk. We should be making very clear to Vladimir Putin, if you engage in nuclear activity or a lightning strike, which is the language which he uses, here are the responses we will undertake, and here are the costs that you will pay. And we will do this. There won't be meetings. There won't be debates. This is what we're going to go do. If we haven't made that very clear to him, and I pray that we've done so, even if privately, then we have green-lighted Vladimir Putin. He will see that as weakness, and it is more likely that these kinds of things will be undertaken by him, much to the detriment of Ukraine and Europe and the United States.
Well, obviously, it doesn't appear that they've made that language clear, Secretary, because he's still taunting us. I mean, the taunting alone should trigger the U.S. to say, we're out. No more negotiations on anything. In fact, we're still allowing the purchase of oil on the global market from Russia. Now, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that China is starting to buy less Russian oil, that they're going to be buying it from Iran. There's that partnership. And now you've got Germany saying that it's now ready to stop buying gas from Russia. But what do you think about this? I mean, a clear path would be banning everything from Moscow, putting Moscow on watch, and yet they're still there on the SWIFT network making money on the sale of oil and gas.
Murray, this was actually pretty easy. We should put America first. We should put American energy first. We should be moving heaven and earth to get American energy delivered to the Europeans, to the Poles, to the Hungarians, to the Romanians, to any European country that wants American natural gas or American crude oil or refined products. That should be the model we should use. We should make clear to every nation in the world, if you underwrite this aggressive war by Vladimir Putin, if you give rubles or currency to Vladimir Putin, you are underwriting the death of innocent Ukrainians, and we're just not going to let it happen. So primary sanctions on each of these nations, secondary sanctions. We should enforce the Iranian sanctions the way we did too. You talked about China buying Iranian oil. We never completely shut it off, but we were dang close to getting that done. We were within a couple 100,000 barrels a day of having the Chinese completely shut off from Iranian oil, and the Iranians didn't get the proceeds from those sales. This is the kinds of policies that put America first. It helps jobs and wealth in our economy, but it also keeps us all more safe and more secure, in addition to being more prosperous here at home, Maria.
So is this why things have become as dangerous as they are? Because one adversary sees the U.S.'s response as weak and thinks, well, I might as well do whatever I want, you know, and create death and destruction. We're not going to get a response from the leader of the free world.
Maria, there's the old line from Southwest Airlines, which says you are now free to move about the cabin. And I think authoritarian leaders around the world see that they are freer to move around the world, to take on places like Taiwan, to fire long-range missiles, to launch weapons out of the Gaza Strip into Israel that are Iranian, to fire missiles out of Yemen into Saudi Arabia every day that are Iranian as well. I do think that authoritarians no longer are convinced that America will do the right thing to defend and assist its partners in securing their own sovereignty. And I worry about cascading crises all across the world. I pray that this does not come to happen.
It's very troubling, and we so appreciate your time and talking with us today. Thanks very much for being here this weekend, Secretary. Good to see you.
Thank you,
Former
Maria.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.